Today is World Suicide Prevention Day, and according to the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S., and the World Health Organization estimates that each year approximately 1 million people die from suicide. This is a global mortality rate of 16 people per 100,000, or one death every 40 seconds. It is predicted that by 2020, the rate of death will increase to one every 20 seconds. Guys, depression as a disease is real, which is why today, being World Suicide Prevention Day, we've decided to spend some time addressing this issue with a survivor as well as Dr. Ian Hypolite. And later on in the program, we will speak with some folks from the Miss Teen Awareness Pageant. Welcome, Zakiya.
Hi, good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Zakiya. You are a poet, spoken word artist.
Yes.
And you're also a survivor of depression.
Yes, I am.
And you're willing to share your story with us this morning in the interest of inspiring others who may be this morning waking up and saying, you know, I can't get out of bed today. You know, I need something to help me move just to live today. Tell us your story.
Hi, I'm Zakiya Gill. More or less, basically, I battled with depression for a very, very long time. Last year was when I more or less got at that low point where it like pain paralyzed me then, and that's when the suicidal thoughts, it came in, and I had to do made some really tough decisions, and I also went into therapy, more or less. I had really toxic, like I used to self-medicate, I would resort to alcohol, I would be very withdrawn from society, like more or less existing, walking around like an empty shell, not feeling good enough, which was interesting because I was performing and I felt like a hypocrite because I was trying to encourage people, hey, you could be the best version of yourself. And then when I went home, I was battling with so much not enoughness inside of me, more or less.
And do you feel like people expected that everything was okay because you are more or less a celebrity in your world?
Right.
Yeah? And that you're smiling and you're giving your all, but inside you're feeling like this is not me.
Yeah, it's like I was wearing a mask, more or less.
Yeah.
Like I was projecting to the world, to social media, to people that I meet, you know, my friends, my family. Yeah, I'm okay, I'm fine, and then when I would go home, when these lonely moments or periods, it would be like, it's the worst feeling ever.
Do you know when it started?
I would say probably like in my teenage years, but I did not know the proper terminology that it was called depression, because let's be real, Lisa, it's so taboo in Trinidad, like you're depressed. Like Trinidad, we are happy, we don't.
What's your worry about?
You know, so I did not know the proper terminology. I just knew that I felt sad, and it was extreme sadness, and I did not want to be around people.
And any of your family members, were they able to determine that you were depressed? How did your family members react to you being withdrawn? Or were you not withdrawn? Were you sort of living a double life then?
I would say it's a double life because they would say, oh, she just moody, she just in a zone, leave her, let her just, and she'll be
especially
okay.
As a creative.
Especially as a creative. It's like, yeah, she's just probably in her zone. But I don't, if they were aware, they never really, they'll ask if you're okay, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm cool. Just brush it off, more or less.
But now that you've come face to face with it, when people ask you if you're okay, what do you say?
I'm very honest now. I'll be like, if I'm okay, I'll be like, I'm okay. If I'm not okay, I'll be like, I'm really not okay, but I just need give me a few days, a few moments, let me just catch myself and I learn to be a little more honest with my feelings now.
And you said that you resorted to therapy. What made you make that decision? Because not many people are able to take that step.
More or less, I did not like how I felt. I knew something was wrong. I knew this, because I know myself, I am happy-go-lucky, full of vibe thing, and it was like a pole, like either I was extremely happy or I was extremely sad. And I did not like how I felt. And then when the thoughts of suicide came in, I was like, something definitely is not right. But initially, the first time therapy was a step. The first time I was supposed to go, I did not go. And then eventually when I did, and I think my first therapy session, I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
I just sat and be like, we could just wait it out.
And how long did your therapy last? Was it over?
It was over a couple of months. I was seeing a therapist once every week, and then eventually it gradually broke down to once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks. It broke down. Once I more or less got better, for lack of a better term.
Would you have had to use medication, or was it just counseling?
No,
psychology?
it was just counseling, psychology. I personally had to do things for my own personal good, like more or less I had to change the narrative in my head, stop telling myself I'm not good enough, stop being so harsh on myself. I had to do more things that I like I really like nature, so I spent more time outdoor. I had to spend less time on social media because I didn't even realize spending so much time on social media was creating anxiety. It was getting me really, really anxious.
Yes.
Whatever I lacked in myself, I had to stop look for it in other human beings, like stop projecting what I want. So I had to do things. I had to be careful of what I took in, like the music I listened to, like the things that I watch. I had to be, and even now I still have to be very, very careful because I'm so sensitive.
Yes.
I can't really more or less
leave yourself open
and kind of think to these kind of emotional kind of videos because it affects me.
And you've channeled a lot of that into your work.
Into writing.
And you're going to share one of your pieces with us now.
Yes.
So I will ask you to step into the spotlight, which is just right there, and give us one of your poems. That's your camera there. Yeah. Zakiya Gill.
Hi, good morning. I am Zakiya Gill. This piece is entitled Gift of Poetry. Thank God for the gift of poetry. Because when pain flowed through my body like I took shots of ether and hurt at my heart like it was a cancerous tumor, these words, it flushed my system. And in reality, I needed a healer, and I create like the creator. Whenever I am overdosed on vibes, I take darkness and I produce light. I produce life. I don't take this gifting light. But like that Hebrew boy named Moses, he drew her out of water, giving her the same passionate mitochondria to bring her people closer to their Redeemer. That's why every time I grip the pen, he reminds me that I am his spiritual cardiothoracic surgeon. I touch hearts without hands. I am able to reconstruct arteries and pump love into ventricles. I am trying to be a miracle. I speak words to help people reach their pinnacle. Bring hope to those who haven't met their pedestal. And I could have got 100 hours of sleep and still feel so miserable. It's ironic. It used to feel like I was breathing underwater, and the water, it began to get into my lungs, and it felt like it wanted to collapse. So these words became my breath of life when my lungs got wheezy and refused to function. I was lying on a hospital bed. My heart, it was critical. My trust, it was ICU. I was dying to be loved. By whom? So I write to survive, I write to suffice, I write not to fall into cardiac arrest. When I write is when I get rest, when I write is when I feel all right. And now I know depression will never get the best of me because God blessed me with such an amazing gift that is poetry. Thank you.
Woo! Zakiya Gill, so much talent there. And I trust that her story inspired you today, especially if you are not feeling all right today and that, you're motivated just to come out of bed and smile and say, world, I'm here, take me, and I'm giving you all that I've got. But to help us to make sense of all of this is psychiatrist Dr. Ian Hypolite. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Thank you for getting up and coming on set with us this morning.
Absolutely my pleasure.
And welcome to TTT, the brand new TTT.
Thank you.
Good to have you. So, we're talking about World Suicide Prevention Day, and you would have heard Zakiya's story, and this is probably not unfamiliar to you at all.
It is not, and in fact, I want to compliment Zakiya for her form of expression. I've never really heard it put that way, but I suppose anyone who hears Zakiya can identify with exactly what she's saying. Zakiya suffers from depression. Yeah. Most people can't recognize depression when it does occur. It's interesting that ultimately she did and she responded to it.
Yes, and one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is family members and friends recognizing? Because she said, you know, they would say, oh, she's just being moody, you know, she's being sour, she's difficult. What are some of the signs and symptoms that family members and parents could look at and say, oh, maybe I should take this as something serious?
Zakiya mentioned that she began to isolate herself. She also began to demonstrate changing mood. She spoke about being ultimately either very happy or very sad. Interestingly, though, she tried to mask her depression. And sometimes family members can experience difficulties in trying to identify people who have depression simply because they don't want to let other people in. Mm-hmm. But usually you can look out for a change in behavior, a change in sleeping pattern, a change in eating pattern. In some instances, there may be the hint of physical illness for which no answer can be found. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, the expression of an intent to harm oneself is, of course, the most sensitive indication.
Yes. Yeah, because I was listening to a mental health story on the BBC where they said that, you know, stage 4 cancer, cancer is a disease, and when you get to stage 4, it results in death. And depression is a disease which, if it goes untreated, could result in death through suicide. But our society, I think, might still be a bit taboo about depression and suicide, Doctor?
I agree with you. And I think that the description of depression as a disease is most critical because most people don't see it as a disease like any other, like having high blood pressure or having diabetes. Depression is eminently treatable. It is a disease. And I think that if more people were to consider it in that way, then the stigma that accompanies depression will disappear.
We have to congratulate Zakiya as well because she recognized the need to get help, to seek help, but not many people do that, and some people are even turned away. Their families may say, no, 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 that's not for you. What do you say to them?
Again, I say that depression is eminently treatable.
Yeah.
And you can get help. Zakiya sought help in the form of a therapist and did what we would want to call talk therapy.
Yeah.
As a psychiatrist, we engage in talk therapy as well, but we also have the ability to prescribe medication if needed. Mm-hmm. But I want to emphasize one thing, that depression is probably the main cause of suicidal ideas. But in addition to that, you can have people who are psychotic, people who have psychotic illnesses. Yeah. People may hear voices that are actually telling them to harm themselves. They may not actually be depressed, but they're responding to hallucinations, for example. Yeah. Substance abuse is a major association. There's a major association between substance abuse and depression as well. Zakiya didn't get to that point. She's self-medicated. Mm-hmm. But there are people who can act impulsively, particularly under the influence of substances. So those are other causes as well.
Mm-hmm. So suicide is not necessarily linked to depression only.
Not solely.
But depression is becoming very prevalent in our society today.
It is the most common.
And particularly among young people as well. You know, children suffer from depression. It is a reality.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. The World Health Organization has estimated that between the ages of 18 and 29, suicide is the second leading cause of mortality.
Really?
Second. Yes.
So we need to really build and create more awareness around this topic.
Definitely.
And some more acceptance as well.
Definitely.
Yes. You mentioned that there's a difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist.
Yes.
And I would like you to just clear that up for some of our viewers who are probably asking themselves, well, what's the difference?
Yeah, most people don't know. I like to say that we have points of intersection. There are things that we do in common. Psychologists, maybe I should start with what a psychiatrist is. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor. I'm a medical doctor. Mm-hmm. So you become a medical doctor and then you go into the behavioral field.
Yes.
Psychologists are not medical doctors. We do things in common. We both do talk therapy, but we have, I would say, areas of exclusion. Psychologists cannot prescribe medication, and psychiatrists, by and large, do not engage in what we call psychometrics, the measuring, the testing.
Right.
We tend to leave that to the psychologist. So we have our own spheres, but we have points of intersection.
But one of the main things is that the psychiatrist can, in fact, prescribe medication.
Yes, as a medical doctor.
And one of the fears I know some people have is that I'm not going on any medication because I'm going to be on it for the rest of my life. Some may have to, but some may not.
That is true. Mm-hmm. And that is to be determined between you and your psychiatrist.
Yes, yeah. Well, Doc, so good to have you on the program this morning, and I trust that you provided some answers to some questions that maybe some parents themselves may have had based on looking at or observing the behavior of their children or family members. And because it's World Suicide Prevention Day. We just thought we'd bring this to you, and maybe you might be able to help someone just by a thought, by a smile maybe, by a word of encouragement, Doc, to decide, no, I'm going to live, because there's so much to live for. We're going to take in a few messages. Thank you so much, Dr. Hypolite. We're going to take in a few messages. When we come back, it's the Nescafe Feel Good moment and so much more here on Now. Back in a moment.